This is the White Coat Investor Podcast, Milestones to Millionaire, celebrating stories of success along the journey to financial freedom.
This is Milestones to Millionaire Podcast 131. Nurse becomes a millionaire. Still not sure what to do with your student loans? Overwhelmed with how to tackle that giant debt in an ever-changing political climate? The experts at studentloanadvice.com are here to help guide you through the best options to manage your loans. Our experienced staff have consulted on over $250 million in student loan debt, and the average studentloanadvice.com client has saved over $190,000. You'll receive a customized student loan plan using the principles of the White Coat Investor. Get answers to all of your student loan questions, gain clarity about your financial future, and start down the right path toward financial freedom. Book a consult today at www.studentloanadvice.com. You can do this, and the White Coat Investor can help. Welcome back to the Milestones to Millionaire podcast. This is that podcast where we share in your successes. We want to hear from you, the milestones you've reached, whether it's paying off your car, whether it is, sending your kid to college, whether it's having $100,000 in your HSA, whatever it might be. Maybe you just got back to broke. That's a great milestone, important milestone for most doctors. You might be a millionaire or a decamillionaire or financially independent or whatever. We'd love to celebrate it with you and use your story to inspire other White Coat investors to do the same. You can apply to come on the podcast at whitecoatinvestor.com/milestones. All right. One other thing you ought to know about, my friend Peter Kim at Passive Income MD has put together a fantastic conference. I'll be speaking at this conference. It's September 21st through 23rd, 2023 in LA. Okay? It's a good time. It's called the Physician Real Estate and Entrepreneurship Conference. Okay? Got some great speakers, some great courses, some great events associated with the conference. You can check that out. PIMDcon.com is where you can sign up. There's also a virtual option, so check that out. All right. Let's get to our guest. This is a little bit unique. This is a lower income person than maybe a lot of people we've had on the podcast. But I think there's a lot of lessons to learn here, and we'll talk about them in a minute. Stay tuned afterward. I want to talk about student loan refinancing because that is going to become a very important topic for a lot of White Coat investors in about 2 weeks. Our guest today on the Milestones to Millionaire podcast is Heath. Heath, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us what you do for a living and what part of the country you live in.
Yeah, so the last 12 years, I've worked as a nurse, and I live in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Okay, just a nurse. What kind of nursing do you do?
Yep, so I started out in the neurology floor, so a lot of strokes, seizures, back surgeries, etc. And then about 7 years in, I switched over to rehab nursing. And then last year, for about a year, I did some local travel contracts for travel nursing around Michigan.
Okay. To be clear, you are not a nurse practitioner. You are not a CRNA. You are a regular nurse.
Correct. BSN RN nurse. Correct.
Okay. And what's your income been over the last 12 years? What's kind of the range of what your income has been?
Yeah, I took some notes here. So I started out back in 2011 at $22.65 an hour. And then I ended at $36.59 an hour. And so per year, that I made anywhere between like $60,000 to $90,000 a year, depending on how much extra shifts I picked up or how much overtime or incentive pay that I picked up. So between $60,000 to $90,000, except for last year, I did make like $130,000, but that's because I was doing the local travel contract, so I was getting paid quite a bit more for that. So.
Okay, $130,000 as a nurse. That's pretty awesome. How much work were you doing? How many weeks did you work? How many hours a week to get that?
Yeah. So, as nurses, a lot of us do 3 12-hour shifts a week. But when I graduated and got into nursing, I would get bored. That's 4 days off a week. And I would get bored. So I would usually pick up, every few weeks, I'd pick up a 12-hour shift or maybe like an 8-hour shift or a couple 4-hour shifts to break it up. So I would say I'd picked up towards the beginning, the first 3, 4, 5 years, I picked up a decent amount of overtime shifts.
But now you're just doing 3 12s a week.
Yeah. Yep. And so I'm kind of transitioning. So I'm still doing nurse, and I love finances so much that I am doing financial advice on the side to help out some of my nursing colleagues and other people in healthcare. So I'm kind of doing both, doing part-time in both.
But that's all new in the last year or so, the financial?
Correct. Yep. Exactly. Yep.
Okay. I go through all that information before we actually get to the financial milestone we're going to talk about today, because I think it's all relevant, because you are a millionaire. In fact, you're well past being a millionaire. I understand your net worth is about 1.8 million. Is that right?
Correct. Yep.
All right. Tell us about your net worth. What's it divided into? How much is in your home? How much is in investment real estate, retirement accounts, et cetera?
Yeah. Yep. So the total 1.8 million when I added it all up. So the breakdown of that, about 17,000 in cash. I have about 47,000 in a money market fund, and about 30,000 in my HSA, 164,000 in my Roth IRA, 115,000 in a traditional IRA, 31,000 invested in a after tax brokerage account, and then real estate. So about 1.4 million is in real estate. The value is around 2 million. And then I have about 600,000 in real estate mortgages.
Very cool. So, tell me about the real estate. Do you own a house that you live in?
Correct. Yep. So I did, when I graduated about a year in of nursing, after I got some money saved up, I bought my first house and I did house hacking. So I bought my house. It was a 5-bedroom house, so it was pretty big. Rented out the 4 other bedrooms to some random people, which was pros and cons to that. Some was fun, some was not so fun, living with a bunch of random people. But I did that so I could use their rent money that they're paying me to save up for the second house, and then just kind of cascaded that way of saving up money for the third rental and the fourth rental. So I have 6.5 rentals right now. One of them I bought with my brother. So that's where the real estate is broken down.
Okay, very cool. And how much leverage are you using on the real estate? What's the overall loan to value ratio?
Yeah, so 2 million in total equity, and 2 million total in value, and then about 600 in mortgages. So I have about 1.4 in equity.
So really not that highly leveraged at all. You're only about 30% leverage.
Correct. Yep. And I've looked in it too. I graduated in 2011, so I kind of got some good deals on my first few rentals because that was after the 2008 2009 crash. And then I would buy some, fix them up, and I wouldn't refinance all of them. So some of them I would just put the money in and just let the loan stay at a lower balance.
So you're 12 years out of nursing school and $1.8 million. So tell us how you did that. I mean, obviously, part of it was, investing, and you had some leverage involved and some real estate investing. Obviously did some house hacking, but, this is pretty remarkable, right? If you look at the money you've made nursing in the last 12 years, it's less than 1.2 million. Yet your net worth is 1.8 million. So how do you explain that?
Yeah, I think I like to consider myself a pretty frugal person. So I would, one thing which I actually thought of, I don't drink. So that's one thing, which I think alcohol is a big expense for a lot of people. When I go out to dinner with my friends, if we're ordering meals, their bill is usually like twice as much than mine because they buy drinks on top of it. But just staying frugal, like I don't spend a lot of money on materialistic things. I like to spend it on travel or something that is going to help me get to the goal of what I want, instead of just having a bunch of materialistic stuff sitting around my house that isn't going to go anywhere. Um, I've always driven an older car, right? So I've always had a car that's probably 8-9 years older. Right now, my car is a 2011. And just having that in the back of my head that I don't need all this fancy stuff when I could instead use my time better. And I've talked to a lot of people that I think money is just really time in disguise, right? Like we go to work to get money, to use that money to buy somebody else's time, and we sacrifice our time to go to work. So I always try to keep that in my mind whenever I spend money, is actually I'm spending my time or my future time that I'm going to have to do when I pay for something.
So are you single, married, kids?
I'm single, no kids, so I'm sure that has part of it to do as well. I know kids can be quite expensive. So single, not by choice. I just have not found the right person yet. And I know on a previous podcast episode, you mentioned that finding the right partner is one of the best things you can do financially, because a divorce splits your assets in half. So just haven't found the right person yet.
Yeah, for sure. The data shows married people acquire more wealth, but only if they stay married.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
so this is pretty cool. So how far away do you think you are from being financially independent?
Uh, so like I said, I live pretty frugally. My expenses per month are probably 2 to 3 thousand a month, and so my rental portfolio could probably support that if I wanted it to. So I would say that I could be financially independent if I want, but what would I do if I'm not working? Like I feel like it's good to have a goal or to have something, and even the social networking that you get at work as well can add a lot to your life. So I would say I could be financially independent, but I'm choosing not to because I want to do something else to try to bring value to the world that we live in and bring value to my life. So this fall, I'm actually reaching a school that I went to, and I'm going to teach another clinical rotation for the school with new nurses in the hospital. So I think it's still good to be beneficial or to do something beneficial and keep um, working, even if you don't have to.
Yeah. So maybe better said, you are financially independent, just still working because you find some gratification doing so.
Correct. Yep. And so one thing I've noticed too is, because I'm financially independent now, is maybe I'm not picking up a bunch of shifts anymore if I don't have to. Right. I'm choosing to do some other things in life instead of picking up because I put in the hard work to begin with and invested well and invested consistently. That now I can kind of start reaping some of those benefits of not having to pick up extra shifts or off shifts, etc.
So how does that make you feel at work? Do you enjoy work more or do you enjoy work less now that you get these, sometimes nonsensical tasks that you don't need the money for?
That's a good question. I think kind of some of both, right? So I enjoy not feeling like I have to go into work. That's beneficial. But if I go work and the hospital or administration is wanting you to do something different than us clinical staff might not want to do, or it doesn't seem like that's the right thing to do, then that makes it probably more frustrating because I know that I don't have to put up with it if I didn't want to. So I think it's some of both.
Now, this podcast has occasionally received criticism over the years that we only put on people that make a gazillion dollars and save a gazillion dollars and have a gazillion dollars. And we today we've taken a little bit to the other extreme. A lot of people out there would not necessarily consider a nurse to be a high income professional, although $130,000 last year, is more than lots of pharmacists, et cetera, make. But what's the lesson there for the typical physician that's making $275,000 a year? If you've gotten to financial independence by the time that some of them aren't even coming out of their training.
Yeah, and that's actually one reason why I wanted to come on this podcast, because obviously it's a little nerve wracking, sharing your finances with a huge audience, right? But the last few episodes I listened to, it really encouraged me to do it as kind of a respectful challenge to other residents and physicians that listen to the show, that if a nurse can do it on a salary that's much lower, then there's really no good excuse for people that are having a higher income not be able to do things. It's all about choices, right? If you choose to live as a resident for 2 or 3 years after you graduate, like you say, then you're going to set yourself up for a much better success. If you choose to be the person that goes out and buys a brand new car and a $600,000-$700,000 mortgage on a house, then you'll reap those rewards too down the road. So
Now, I work with lots of nurses, and I talk to them about finance all the time. And I'm going to ask a whole bunch of them to listen to this episode. What message do you have for them?
it's a good question. I would tell them to, you know, Google a financial calculator and just plug in, a certain percentage at a certain amount of years, and so you can actually see how much a small amount can grow over a large number of years, right? I don't think people truly understand how powerful compounding interest can actually be in the long term, right? I think the first 5 years I did my Roth IRA from like 2008 to 2012, I didn't really make any money, right? But if you look back 12 years, 15 years from now, or ago, all of that money and how much it's gained over the years. So that would be my challenge is to figure out compounding interest and truly understand it so that they can help harness it for themselves.
Now, you made a passing remark earlier about house hacking. Let's talk a little bit about house hacking. your experience. Tell us about the pros. Obviously, you had that extra income, but tell us about some of the bad things too. Maybe why it wasn't such a great experience.
Yeah. So the cons, I mean, you're living with some random people. They don't treat your house as nice as you treat it. They damage stuff. They don't take out the trash. They, um, they can be loud when you're trying to sleep and you have to work the next day. I had actually, when I was doing the house hacking, I think I only had one person who ended up not paying me rent for like 3 months. And so then I had to evict them or ask them to leave. And I never got that money back. So I was out $1,000, right, from their rent. Um, but in the big scheme of things, out $1,000 of what it's allowed me to accomplish is a very small amount, right? So those are some of the negatives when you're living with random people.
So, were you more picky in choosing your, roommates, your tenants, than you might otherwise be if it was, one of your other properties?
Um, I I wasn't. If I could go back in time, I probably would be a little bit more picky. But I was just all about whoever's gonna pay me the rent and pay it on time. Then I could deal with living in that situation for a short term because I knew it wasn't going to be a long term thing.
All right. Well, by the time everything's said and done, 30 or 40,000 people are going to listen to this podcast. What have we not talked about that you think they ought to hear?
I would say the one thing that we didn't touch on that I have a good quote that I think everybody would like from James Clear, and it's about instead of just learning, instead of being the learner, actually be the doer, right? So his quote goes, um, "The teacher learns more than the student, the author learns more than the reader, and the speaker learns more than the attendee. The way to learn is by doing." And so I would say if they've been thinking about trying something new or trying a podcast or doing this, is just to do it because we all start somewhere and it's probably not going to be the best quality to begin with. But as you do it more and more with practice and over time, you're going to consistently get much better at it.
Awesome. Well, Heath, congratulations on your success. It's pretty awesome to be financially independent. And so, congratulations to you on that. And thanks so much for coming on the podcast to inspire others to do the same.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. Hope it does.
All right. Hope you enjoyed that interview. The truth is, income matters, right? The more income you have, the easier it is to build wealth. But it kind of doesn't matter because people that don't have that high of an income can build wealth too. Yes, they need to do things to boost their income like this nurse did. Yes, they need to save maybe a bigger chunk of their money, and maybe they need to do it for a longer period of time. But the point is, it can be done. And so I love sharing stories like this because I think it emphasizes to those of us who are making $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year or more that this is not that complicated. And you really don't have a huge excuse when you have that sort of an income, right? You got to get this stuff taken care of. It's just a matter of applying some financial literacy, some financial discipline. And you got the combination of those two things in our world. It's like having a superpower because it's so rare to have both of those. But you can do it. You can put those two together and you can build wealth no matter what your income. All right. I promised you at the beginning that I was going to talk a little bit about student loan refinancing. As this podcast drops, it's August 14th, 2023. And guess what starts happening on September 1st this year? That's right. That student loan holiday is over. It's over. That great announcement made on, I think it was March 13th, 2020. President Trump gets up there in front of the White House, declares everything an emergency, and says student loan are going to 0% and no payments. And it's been that way for 3.5 years. You don't owe a dollar more than you did before in federal student loans. And you haven't had to make a payment for 3.5 years. Well, that all goes away September 1st. Starting September 1st, the interest starts accumulating again. And within a month or so after that, you're going to have to start making your first payment again. And so that means it's time to be thinking about your student loan plan. A lot of you have been thinking about your student loan plan. Our sponsor for this episode, studentloanadvice.com, has booked a lot of consults for this late summer and early fall. They're talking to all kinds of people about their student loans and getting plans in place. So check them out. If you have a complicated situation and you need some help putting together your student loan plan, they will help you. Many of you don't have a complicated situation, right? You've just been waiting until the holiday ends to implement your plan. And maybe your plan is you got a whole bunch of cash sitting around and you're just going to take your student loans in a corner and drop an anvil on them on September 1st. So don't forget to do that before the interest starts accumulating. Others of you have been waiting to refinance. You knew that refinancing was right, and you made a decision a year or two ago that you'd take 0% for a little bit longer, as long as it went, instead of refinancing to 2 or 3%. Well, in the meantime, interest rates have gone up dramatically, so you've lost the opportunity to refinance to 2 or 3%. But I expect you should still be able to refinance to something around 5%. And maybe that only knocks 0.5% off your student loans. Maybe it knocks 1% or 1.5%. Just depends on what your loans are at. But if you're going to be paying them back and you don't need the protections of the federal system, the federal student loan system, you're not going for PSLF, you're not going for some IDR taxable forgiveness in 20 or 25 years, and you can get a lower rate, you should refinance. And the best place to refinance is through the links at the White Coat Investor. Okay, so if you go there, you'll see on our recommended page, whitecoatinvestor.com/recommended, you can go to student loans and you'll see the folks we recommend. If you go through those links to refinance, you'll get cash. Okay, they'll send you a check or they'll put it toward your loans if you want, but you get cash back. And so that's a great benefit. We're also, at least for a limited time, we're giving you Fire Your Financial Advisor, our flagship course, if you refinance a student loan through those links. So be sure to check that out as well. Now, you may find you go on there and you've got student loans at 5.4% or something, and the best they can give you is 5.5%. What's the worst that happens? You wasted a little bit of time, like 3 minutes, finding that out, right? You don't even have a hard credit pull on your credit. But you know what? You might also find out that you qualify for 4.75 or something like that. So you can't know unless you actually check on there and go through 3 or 4 or 5 of these and see what rate they're going to give you. Now, a lot of you had something way worse than 5.5%, right? Maybe you have 6.8%. Maybe you got 7.8%. Maybe you went to a Caribbean school and you got 10% loans. I don't know what you have. But if you can get a lower rate, and you're not, going for PSLF or some other, federal student loan forgiveness plan, you ought to refinance your loans. It will save you money. You can make the same payments, and more of it will go to principal. You'll just be out of debt sooner. But this is your warning. Don't say nobody ever told you that it's time to do something about your student loans again. This fall is the time. It's time to get that done if you've been putting it off, and a lot of you have. Don't focus on the payments, right? A lot of you are like, well, they're still using my 2019 income to determine my payments, okay? Payments don't matter so much. I mean, in repay and save, the payments do matter because it means less is accumulating, but still, it doesn't help you to pay back your student loans just to have a low payment. In a lot of cases, it makes it harder because loans are going up in the loan balance is going up. So get the stuff taken care of. Know what's going on. If you're one of those who's had your head in the sand, ignoring it, pour yourself a stiff drink, sit down at the dining room table with your partner, if applicable. Actually write down what you owe, how much, what the interest rates are, what the payments are. Let's get on top of this. It's time to get it done. All right. If you need help or you're just feeling overwhelmed, you're really not sure what to do, you're worried about the political climate, whatever. Okay. The experts at studentloanadvice.com, they're here to help guide you through the best options to manage your loans. They've consulted on over 250 million in student loan debt. It'll be a whole lot more than that by the time you hear this podcast because they're super busy right now. But the average studentloanadvice.com client has saved over $190,000. A lot of that is additional public service loan forgiveness they didn't know they were eligible for example. You'll receive a customized student loan plan using the principles of the White Coat Investor and get answers to all of your student loan questions. You'll gain clarity about your financial future. You'll start down the right path toward financial freedom. Book your consult today at studentloanadvice.com. You can do this and the White Coat Investor can help. All right, we've come to the end of another Milestones to Millionaire podcast. Hopefully we've educated you a little bit about what can be done even on a low income. Relatively low income. I mean, the truth is, that's actually a pretty good income compared to the average American household income, but it's a low income in the White Coat Investor community. And we've talked a little bit about student loan refinancing. I hope this information is useful to you. Let us know how this podcast can help you better. Our goal here is to serve you. We're here on a sunny afternoon in Utah recording podcasts, and we're doing it for you because we want to help you. So if this is not helpful, let us know that. We'll fix it until it is helpful. We want to inspire you. We want to educate you. We want to encourage you because you can do this. We'll stand by you every step of the way. See you next time on the podcast.
The hosts of The White Coat Investor are not licensed accountants, attorneys, or financial advisors. This podcast is for your entertainment and information only. It should not be considered professional or personalized financial advice. You should consult the appropriate professional for specific advice relating to your situation.